Recently, I spoke with Deloitte's Matt Hutton and Scott Littlejohn from BMO Capital about mergers and acquisitions activity in the insurance industry. In a follow-up, Boris Lukan explains what companies can do to ensure a successful result after an M&A. Boris is a principal with Deloitte Consulting, specializing in post-merger integration and company-wide cost reduction. Here are the highlights. Boris, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Marisa. Good to be here.
First, Boris, what makes for a successful merger or acquisition?
Well, in very general terms, I think M&A success is a product of three things: the right strategy, the right execution, and ultimately the right price. Let me talk about each of those three. In terms of strategy, I think it's just pivotal that the deal makers really would have thought through both a plausible and executable rationale for why the deal is taking place and how that deal will create value, how that combined organization will create value, and that the target end state is very well defined. For me, execution success looks like an issue-free day one, defined as the day of close. Being able to capture both growth and cost synergies rapidly, quickly stabilizing the organization and things of that nature. And then in terms of price, certainly a premium will be necessary in order to secure control of the organization, but you want to be in a position where you've not paid the bulk of the incremental value that's going to be created by the combined company on a go-forward basis. I think those are the three, in general terms, the three key drivers to success.
So how do you decide what to integrate and how quickly?
Well, let me take those one at a time. In terms of what to integrate, that's typically driven by the acquisition strategy itself, and generally speaking is the more straightforward of the two questions. In terms of how quickly, that's more complicated and usually requires a management team to effectively balance the consideration of trying to obtain synergies quickly, while at the same time, ensuring that you're containing integration risk, transition risk, and stabilizing the organization quickly.
What makes integration so hard?
Well, I think integration is not only hard, but the hardest part of the M&A life cycle. You talk to any CXO who has been through the entire life cycle, including integration, and on an absolutely consistent basis, they're going to say this is the toughest stage. Driven by the fact that you're trying to implement a significant amount of change in a compressed time frame, in an environment that is typically pretty emotionally charged, on a cross-functional basis with resource constraints, while at the same time trying to maintain business as usual. I mean, that is a tough set of circumstances for any organization to find itself in. And I think that collection of challenges, along with business as usual, is the key driver.
Where do companies typically make mistakes?
Unfortunately, we see mistakes take place across the entire continuum, from strategy to planning to execution to change management. Some examples of this that come to mind include a management team believing that taking it slowly, taking it at a very moderated pace, is actually less risky. Now, I agree with that to a point, but taken further, you begin to get diminishing and actually negative returns if you allow the uncertainty that is a natural part of this process to linger too long. It's going to impact your employees, your producers, your end customers. So there are definitely limits to that particular strategy. I think other mistakes that we've seen made is the management team will will make a misjudgment about the amount of structure that needs to be built in to effectively manage the integration effort. It's a highly cross-functional exercise. As I mentioned, done under great time constraints. And executing in a cross-functional fashion is generally not a strong suit of most insurance organizations, but it's critical for this. We need to identify interdependencies cross-functionally. We may need to redeploy resources across organizational boundaries in a very nimble fashion in order to solve problems that may have occurred. These kinds of capabilities aren't generally the strong suit for most insurers. So those are a couple of examples that come to mind.
So as a consultant, what are the key drivers you look for in a successful integration?
When we initially get engaged, there are a handful of things that I'm going to be looking for immediately. I think collectively these things would really make a difference as to how smoothly the integration will go, how much risk we're going to be at in working with a client to execute. For sure, the most important thing is the extent to which the key value drivers of the deal have been well articulated and are clear and well understood across the management team. That's probably the single most important factor. Another critical one is, has the management team been put into place? In some transactions, both predecessor sets of management remain in place going forward. But in significant integration environments where you may have two heads of claims or two CIOs or two CFOs and we need to get down to one, it can be challenging to work with the management team to drive that change quickly. Having them in place really puts us in a position to make decisions rapidly, and really creates an accountability environment that we need in order to make an integration successful. I think other things that I would very much look for is the management team having made a commitment to deploy sufficient resources, both in terms of the nature of the people, their experience, as well as their number. Calibrating that resource commitment with the task at hand is key. Last point, I think it's really important that the target end state be well defined. If that is not in place as we begin working with a client, I can assure you that we would prioritize putting that in place. Those are the key things I look for.
Boris, thanks for those insights.
Thank you.
Boris will be part of an insurance M&A symposium being hosted by SNL in October. For more information on the symposium, visit the SNL website.